A new poll out shows Hillary Clinton with just a 3-point lead over Bernie Sanders nationally, though she's actually up by 50 points if you go by blood pressure.
Hillary Clinton looking ahead to South Carolina after a crushing loss in New Hampshire. The Democrat banking on the southern states to lead her to the nomination. But is that strategy still a viable option? Here with his take, former Congressman and presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich. He is also a Fox News contributor. Thank you so much for getting up early for us this morning.
Good morning.
So what happened in New Hampshire? Was it a surprise to you, or was it a surprise that the margin was so great? What do you think?
The margin was not particularly a surprise, but going forward, what we're looking at here is that Bernie Sanders has the message, the money, the momentum. His campaign has electricity, and it's now launched nationally. So this is going to be a real challenge for Secretary Clinton to be able to stabilize her campaign and take it forward to protect some natural advantages that she has in places like South Carolina, Nevada, and in the Deep South.
Well, I have two follow-up questions for you and what you just said. First of all, why you weren't surprised that the margin was that great, 60 to 8% difference between Clinton and Sanders there. And then also, what are some of the built-in advantages that you just mentioned that she has moving forward?
Well, it was a week ago. I was on Greta Van Susteren's show, and it looked to me like it would be probably 18 to 20 points, and ended up being about 22-point margin. There were polls showing that Bernie Sanders had a 30-point margin. So there was a slight trimming of the gap. However, what's happened, if you look at the internals of the polls that have been done, Bernie Sanders swept the boards with just about every demographic. And that's a warning signal to the Clinton campaign. When you look at younger voters who are of all colors, of course, and you can't just put black voters in silos and Latino voters in silos. The fact of the matter is you have different demographics within those groups, and frankly, Sanders has a chance to penetrate into each of those groups. Whether he does or not, excuse me, remains to be seen. But he is a factor now that has to be reckoned with, and at this point he has a shot at the nomination. Yeah,
it wasn't just the women vote, it wasn't just the young people vote. Also, when you take a look at honesty in particular, Sanders 91% compared to Clinton 5% when people were polled and asked, what is the top candidate quality in terms of honesty and trustworthiness, and those numbers, how can she turn that around?
Well, you have to keep in mind, and this hasn't really been discussed that much, but in the Republican debates, Hillary Clinton turned out to be the favorite piñata of Republican candidates, and we're whacking her left and right and trying to raise the question of honesty continually. I think that actually had an effect on the Democratic race as well, and will. Now she has to make a strong case as to why her experience is necessary in the White House. And I think there's a case to be made for that, but it's going to be a little bit tougher now because she is at a disadvantage with Sanders having the kind of momentum that he has, notwithstanding the natural advantages that Secretary Clinton has going into Nevada, South Carolina, where Latino and South Carolina, the black vote
where the demographics
should go towards Clinton without a question.
Okay, quickly, you mentioned the Republican debates and how they've debated the honesty issue. In terms of the Republican numbers moving forward to South Carolina, you're not surprised that John Kasich did so well?
Well, John Kasich just about lived in New Hampshire, and it was a good call on his part. He ran a good campaign, and in the debates, his message was one of unity. He was being very careful to avoid the internecine conflict on the stage, and so I think that John Kasich put a marker out here, and who knows, we could be looking at a Trump-Kasich ticket, which would be a very strong ticket.
All right. Do you think that might still be the case?
They're two strong candidates.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight as always.
Thank you.
See what happens.